So Boss Man is here. Dylan, welcome.
Hi, how you going? I was going to say I feel a bit weird being called Boss Man.
Boss Man, yeah.
What's
Liam then? Because you're both my boss. But yeah, you guys don't have bosses, but
we form together like Voltron.
Our customers are our bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Customer
government
is always right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
What name would Liam have?
You can call me Muchacho.
Muchacho.
Yeah, because it's a lot more relaxed, a lot more
Muchacho.
personable
Yeah.
than Boss
Bit
Man.
more like friendly.
Yeah. I'm like the friendly ginger bearded dude. So that's my role in this.
So Boss Man and Muchacho.
Muchacho's just hanging around having a good time in your front yard.
Yeah.
While Boss Man just comes along and just like cracks the whip maybe.
Tells him to get off his lawn.
Yeah. Gets out the reverse vacuum cleaner and ruins everyone's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so episode 001, we recorded one already, Liam and I. Where actually, I think the plan at the moment is to drop 3 episodes at once. So just kind of treat everyone to a few off the bat. So that was kind of the beta. I think we call it the beta test episode, the test pressing episode.
The test pressing. Yeah.
I think that's a good name for it.
That's clever.
And this is the first release.
Episode 1.
Yeah, so we got a little bit more to talk about this time, but yeah, something very relevant. You mentioned that there's something interesting about Stranger Things' soundtrack before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably much like most people at the moment who have Netflix, I'm working my way through season 3, and I just noticed like that the soundtrack is particularly good in this season. I think because they've moved into I don't know if the first
the 80s?
Well, it's the 80s. It's definitely the 80s. To be honest, though, I was under the impression that the first 2 seasons were set in the 80s as well.
So
but
did I.
Yeah, it's all set in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I guess this is like late 80s, like big hair.
I think
It's especially 80s, this one, because it's like the coming of age season.
It's peak 80s fashion. I think it's about 85, 86.
Yeah, and the kids are also kind of like they're growing up now, so they're buying their own clothes and they're
truly
becoming
expressing
they're
themselves.
becoming little adults.
Yeah.
So, but the soundtrack is phenomenally good. I must say, it's like everyone knew the soundtrack was interesting from the
like
get-go.
Original composition.
Original composition sound. Yeah, the score probably is the better way to put it. But yeah, it's really grabbed me, this one. Like I actually had a little bit of a listen to it on YouTube just as by itself without the show sort of accompanying it, and it's great. So I'm really looking forward to that, and it kind of leads into what you were going to mention as well about was it 28
2814.
2814. Yeah.
So I'm not too into vaporwave. There are select albums that I really enjoy, but one that's stuck with me as kind of my go-to album is 2814's Brave New Day, or Birth of a New Day, sorry. That it's kind of like, the KLF, the Chill Out album. It's kind of like, how it takes you on this journey through the south of the US, and it's like this ambient, journey. Imagine that, but set in neon Tokyo.
Yeah,
it's cool. Like it's very much like a sit down, lie in your bed with headphones on kind of experience.
Yeah, I was getting some I had a quick listen, Blade Runner kind of vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
even the cover kind of reminded me a lot of.
It definitely draws
Tokyo
inspiration from
version of
Vangelis,
or maybe like Akira or something like that.
Yeah. That they would all those pieces would have informed 2814 when they were creating this.
So because it's getting a reissue, is that right?
It's getting a reissue. So they did 2 things. They released an album out of the blue a couple of days ago where it was all like offcuts from other projects and B-sides and stuff that's appeared on compilation albums. And it's basically just a rarities collection. And then they also announced the repress of Birth of a New Day, which is a very hard to get one up until this point. It's had a couple of represses, but it always sells out immediately.
When was it released originally?
I think it was like about 4 years ago. I feel
So
like
fairly-
20. It's very modern.
Recent.
Yeah.
Fairly recent,
It's getting a repress finally.
Through
on
what
like a
label?
Pink marble. I can find out.
And this whole, like, you mentioned, like, what do they call it? What's the genre? What's the subgenre of electronica? Is it vaporwave?
I don't know. Like, I'm probably going to get this wrong, and all the vaporwave enthusiasts are probably going to be sitting at home going, like, no, that's not right. But January 2015, by the way, is when it came out.
Yeah.
It's on the Bleep store, actually.
Because I understand that vaporwave is kind of like taken the internet by storm. I can't.
Yeah, from about 2010, from my understanding, is when it really kind of took off.
Yeah, it's all over my YouTube feed.
Yes,
I'm constantly getting
YouTube algorithm kind of scene.
There's a band called Windows 90 something 94.
I think it's one of the. It's a 90 something that Microsoft didn't actually release one.
Yeah, that pops up a lot for me as well. They have several albums. I had to listen to it. They're pretty cool.
It's cool. The thing that I like about this album, though, as opposed to other vaporwave, is I really like the texture and the feeling of vaporwave. However, the thing that it kind of loses me on is it relies too much on nostalgia and 90s nostalgia, and it kind of eventually feels cheesy. And I know it knows that too, and it's
derivative.
It plays with that. But the thing I like about 2814 is, and they explicitly said this too, but it's very noticeable when you listen to the album, is that it's got the same texture, but it doesn't rely on samples of 90s operating systems and all
Gotcha.
that. It doesn't feel exploitative.
Yeah. So it's built from the ground up then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's another album that you might be able to shed some light on for me.
Yep.
Which I believe has become like a bit of a meme. And the cover is like, it looks like the head of like a statue, like a Greek statue.
Oh, that's the definitive one. I'll have to have a look.
And then there's like a black and white checkered floor maybe in the background, and a few other like really you've probably seen that cover somewhere on the internet as well, Dylan. Macintosh Plus. So that's another computer.
Like the one that started it all, basically.
Right.
From what I understand, I'm sure there was other stuff before it, but this was the one that kind of exploded on Bandcamp, and because I think Bandcamp is pretty responsible for that scene too, just because of the nature of how it is. It's kind of like a cross between iTunes meets SoundCloud. And
I was aware of the meme before I was even aware that was an actual album. I thought it was just like a joke on the internet, and then
kind of is. It kind of is like meme music, from what I understand. It's how it's come across to me. I don't know. I'm sure like vaporwave enthusiasts are probably going to be upset at that kind of word.
No offense to anyone who's a vaporwave enthusiast. I definitely enjoy the music. It's just one of those things that has been a bit of an enigma to me, I think. Yeah. And it's just been so prevalent like on all the YouTube algorithms and on Reddit and all these places in the internet. But I've never really had the opportunity to listen.
Have you seen how I watched a video essay by a guy called Wang, WHANG, and he does like stories. He's got a series called Tales from the Internet, and one of the more recent episodes he did on this Japanese city pop artist who released an album in Japan that had relative pop success back in the day, but then it exploded on the internet a few years ago. Because of the YouTube algorithm, and he kind of delves into like the side of music distribution now and how the YouTube algorithm can really make an artist.
So he figured out how to exploit that, or was it just incidental?
No, just incidental. Like Google, because it's Google's SEO kind of strategies now, they just keep, it's like a cat and mouse game, because as much as they set up these algorithms for the search engine to work by, people are going to try and exploit that. So they've got to keep changing so people don't exploit it. Yeah. So it's a bit of a, especially these days, there's like you can create a solid understanding, but there is an element of mystery to how it functions. Same for the YouTube algorithm. So a lot of the time it just incidentally finds itself there without intention. The other album that did that recently is Plantasia. And that is the reason why it's getting a repress, because it got in YouTube's algorithm.
Yeah.
It became really popular again, and people started demanding the record, and it finally got a proper repress.
Mort Garson, is that his name?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we've got a copy at home, and I've stocked it a few times, and it's known, and it's such an obscure thing for people to know about.
Those were really collectible for a time.
Recently
ones.
reissued, I think.
Yeah.
I saw it announced because probably
That's
off the back of the
That's
success
exactly
on YouTube.
it. Yeah, it got successful on YouTube, and they I remember when they announced it. I think they even somewhere in the announcement they acknowledged that was the reason. I think
It's amazing.
It was
really,
like a couple
though,
months back, but
how big a tool YouTube is now for releasing music, or just even for discovering music.
The YouTube algorithm is insane. Like, I got my haircut by a guy, and we were talking about. He was like, "Oh, I don't even want to jump to Spotify now because I've been using YouTube for my music for almost 10 years, and it just knows me so well. Every time it finishes its queue, it goes on a recommended stuff. It just hits the spot."
It does seem to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
Spotify's is really good too.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, because the day Spotify came out in Australia, I subbed straight away. I think it's a really great tool. I acknowledge and empathize that Spotify doesn't pay artists enough proportionally, but I think it's a bit more complex than say a sale. I think streaming is. I think there's too much of a discussion about comparing it to a sale. Streaming, it kind of needs to be understood as its own beast. But anyway, I'm digressing.
It's also a great way to like promote for people to promote the music. So if it gets in the Spotify algorithm, then people are going to hopefully buy a physical copy anyway. So
which would be these days would be vinyl.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. So the Spotify's recommendation algorithm for years was terrible, and then Facebook bought it out. And then as soon as Facebook did, at first I thought, shit, everything's been bought by
But
Facebook.
those guys
Because
are
I think Oculus had recently been purchased by them as well.
Yeah.
And
But they know how to use data.
Exactly, that's it. And then as I kind of thought about it, I was like, they have really good data algorithms.
Does this
it's probably
mean-
going to recommend really good music, and it is phenomenal now. Whenever I listen to a playlist and it rolls onto just the radio based off the playlist, it's always really good.
Is it using your Facebook activity to
sure it
determine
does.
what you want to like?
Because I log in with my Facebook account.
So it knows what bands you like already, and probably knows what you're engaging in on Facebook.
Yeah, so
well.
those algorithms will know everything in terms of when you start to skip a track. What album art you tend to kind of stop scrolling on. It's the same with Netflix. Like everything with, how you go onto Netflix, you launch it up and there's like colored cards for, whatever show. Like,
because it's tailoring.
It's tailored exactly to you. There's no part of Netflix when it's presenting content to you that isn't calculated and trying to at least appeal to you. So Netflix's slogan is, we make content, or we make shows that you'll love. And so they're trying to aim to please as much to keep you on their platform, and Netflix is the best streaming service as opposed to Amazon Prime or whatever.
The myriad of other services that seem to be popping up.
And so the more you trust and love the content, the more you'll stay with their platform. But, with that as well is, television shows and movies are a cultural institution for us to challenge our ideas and thoughts. And so the kind of trade-off to that gets discussed a bit is, do we lose those challenges because the way we're consuming TV shows and media is just reinforcing our echo chamber now? Are our political ideologies getting challenged? Are our, ideas about emotion getting challenged? And
interesting question to ask.
I actually had an account with Facebook, which I closed down about 4 or 5 years ago.
Sorry, Dylan, don't forget to speak into the mic.
Sorry, and I had an account with Facebook that I closed down and sort of restarted just because I was just getting. I went through a phase of getting pretty, I don't know, extreme, like with some political stuff that I was kind of following and clickbait that I was reading, and then it just kept reinforcing that. And I got to the point where my feed was just so conspiracy theorist and just, you know, over the top that it was kind of, I couldn't get on Facebook without getting stuck in some pretty, you know, left-wing sort of stuff that I'd originally sort of followed on good faith, but then just too many other pages were coming up, and I just thought I need to just start afresh. Yeah. Started afresh, purposely avoided certain topics of as far as what pages I was following and things like that. And it's a whole different, Facebook's now a whole different sort of universe.
Yeah. They're shifting away from like pages, and especially after the Cambridge Analytica scandal. They're shifting more towards community groups. And that you'll see that as well in their marketing, and their focus is it's going to be more on like, you know, your local buy and sell group, buy nothing and all that. Yeah. Like that's where they're kind of shaping it, because that's what they want you to stay for, because luckily they own it. A lot of people are moving over to Instagram. But, you know, Facebook owns
that's
Instagram
content
anyway.
that can't be provided by Instagram or by Twitter.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's so they've I suppose they're finding a niche.
Yeah, Facebook's shot itself in the foot with political discussion. That's Twitter's domain.
Yeah,
you know, it was probably equal at one point, but it's really, pardon me, damaged Facebook. Most especially, with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And so I think Facebook might be going a little bit hands off with that now, like just easing up on it, letting Twitter do that.
But it is an interesting point, though. Like, you definitely do notice that you tend to only typically see opinions that that align with the content that you've clicked on, the content that you've liked. And you look at like even the recent federal election, and so many people were adamant that Labor were going to have a big win, and
it was
when
basically
that
the mini US election, but happened in Australia.
100%. You know, all these people, probably myself included, who were trapped in this echo chamber of political discussion, were just pretty gobsmacked really with the results. And all the while, on the outside of the echo chamber, things were happening that we couldn't see.
Yeah. So we were just like, Clive Palmer's just like, he's just a right-wing tool that's just got some banners at, you know.
Luckily he didn't win any seats.
No one's going to take, well, he didn't, but like he had a big impact on the outcome, you know.
100% he did, yeah. He threw a big old spanner in the works. And I think he was the one that really took advantage of online campaigning as well. Like, I remember YouTube was absolutely littered with his ads.
As soon as he started doing that Tim Tam shit on Facebook, I was like, nah. All my friends, no matter what side of the spectrum they typically aligned with, they were all jumping on this Clive Palmer Tim Tam stuff. It's basically him just on his page posting him eating Tim Tams, and he would kind of just talk a little bit of smack about other politicians. But it was before this new wave of Clive Palmer, the Make Australia Great Again shit. As soon as he started those Tim Tam, doing the Tim Tam posts, and people were like, this is hilarious. Look, fat politician eating Tim Tams and loving it. I knew exactly what was happening.
That was exactly what he wanted.
He's creating engagement. They know what's going to happen with this.
He even had I had a platform video game, Clive Palmer platform video game.
That was very late in the game. By that point, it was becoming very obvious to most people what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I was just like, man, this guy's obviously got some pretty, outside the box thinking, people helping him with his campaign.
I feel like irony is the tool of the devil at the moment.
Well, yeah, ironically, after all that, not even the best, or the most effective political campaign could win him a seat. Fuck for that, so.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of conspiracies and all that, and the dark, doomy, gloomy of the world. Well, not really. That was a bit of a shit segue. But what I wanted to talk about was firstly, the Warp event 2 weekends ago. Warp
30th anniversary?
Yep. And they collaborated with the internet radio station NTS and did a whole weekend of original mixes. And it closed off with Boards of Canada releasing a 2-hour mix. So the first thing they've done since Tomorrow's Harvest, which was about 4 or 5 years ago.
2013, yeah?
Yeah. So, 6 now, almost 6 at least. So Yeah. Have you listened to it, Liam? I know I sent it to you at one point.
You sent me I tell you what, I've been pretty bad. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I did
It is 2 hours long.
Yeah, I caught a decent flip through of Apex's set.
Which one? There was two.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So there was one. There was one which was his highbrow experimental art where he had a grand piano swinging from
Wasn't
a
that
pendulum.
one? No, the one
It was
that I
the
saw,
field day?
he was standing pretty much in front of a bunch of modular synths,
Yeah.
maybe some keyboards.
Yeah.
Just doing some pretty like typical Apex stuff.
Yeah.
No pianos or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was quite ambient and quite
Oh, maybe that was something else.
maybe I'm not too sure.
There's a lot of Aphex stuff popping up at the moment
Maybe I was mistaken.
because he did the
And
field
it
day one, which had kind of been around on the net with fans for a while, but the first release that came out as part of Warp 30 is he released footage from his performance at, I forget the theatre hall, where it seemed like he didn't explicitly state what the concept was, but it seemed like what he was experimenting with was remotely triggered instruments. And so there was two parts to this video. The first part was he had a piano swinging from a pendulum, but the piano was being remotely triggered with MIDI, obviously.
While it was swinging. And what would happen is as the piano keys struck, the sound obviously would bounce across the walls, but because of the movement, it would create like a Doppler effect. So it was
and
panning.
it's super unique. Obviously, the recording doesn't quite capture it the same as if you were there, but you kind of hear how it, because it's a composition he ended up releasing on Cyro,
Right.
but it was filmed before Cyro, and so you know what it sounds like studio version, but then when he did it in this experiment, it's got a whole different texture to it.
This is a grand piano you're talking about.
Yeah, it's huge. There was a lot of work put into this. It's on YouTube.
You honestly wonder how these thoughts come together.
He's
Like,
he's
let's
a
just strap a grand piano
maniac.
to some harnesses and like
It's beautiful,
swing
though.
it around.
It's stunning. It sounds stunning. I listened to it a few times.
Yeah,
after.
well,
It
Cyro
sounded so good.
Cyro is probably I recently picked up, and it'd be because I'm pretty late to the party with Aphex. I knew new Window Liquor and all the singles Come to Daddy and that, but you were the one who kind of really properly introduced me to Aphex.
Yeah.
And now that I'm kind of grasping what he's all about, it's a lot more interesting. I suppose it's easy to dismiss it as like a bunch of bleeps and boops and
It's all very. It is like that sometimes, but it's all
It's quite cold and it's quite sterile and it's very calculated.
Yeah.
And it's I think it was one of those things that kind of grew on me. But Cyro, that album goes in so many different directions. There's really, if you listen hard enough, you can find a lot of different influences throughout it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, fantastic album. I'm really looking forward to like another full length release. Although we could be waiting.
Yeah,
a decade.
Well, I don't think so. He's pretty active online now. So since then, did you know about his SoundCloud dump?
I think you were telling me about this, right?
So about 4 years ago or something, he just created a SoundCloud account and put literally about 200 tracks online for free and just put them up there and was like, I was going to keep these in my archives, but fuck it. Here you go, internet.
Yeah, that's
go
right.
crazy.
You were telling me about this.
I wasn't into him as a fan at that point. Kind of heard about it, but since I've become a fan, I've gone through and looked at the Reddit threads from the time, and people went ballistic over it because it was like 100. It was like
it's a lot of music.
It was a lot of music.
200 hours of music. Like that's 200 hours worth of music. By the time he would have put into creating 200 hours worth of music would be.
Yeah, I don't know if it was 200 hours, but it was about 234 tracks. Some of them were like minute long. Some of them were like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, still a lot of content.
It's a lot. I was even reading threads where some people were like, they were assigning different people duties of listening to this track and then just describe it so people could kind of connect the dots of what was kind of his ambient stuff and his skit stuff.
Yeah, right.
His, jazzy stuff and, what it would, they were basically mapping it out. It's quite funny and they're all like, yes, I'll take duty of these tracks. And they write a little synopsis. It's quite funny. But
he's got some dedicated fans, that's for sure.
He's even been banned off a forum that's that's named after one of his tracks. So We Are the Music Makers. It's kind of a bit of lore that he once got banned for trolling on a forum named after him.
So
he's just a shit stirrer.
He's on his computer a lot by the sounds of it.
Yeah, he's funny. But anyway, Boards of Canada released 2 hours of content on there. It's such an exploration of music that I've not heard before. I think the only artist that appeared that I'd ever heard of before was Devo. There was a Devo track on it.
Oh, so you're saying Boards of Canada were doing remixes?
It was a mix. It was kind of like in the same way like an Avalanches have a mix. Like their mixes are much more sophisticated, but because that's what they do. But this was kind of they segued in and out, and there was Boards of Canada kind of style sounds woven in between to kind of make it one cohesive piece.
Right.
So it's very cool. It's worth a listen. There's some tracks on there that people are still trying to find out if that's an actual track that exists or if that's an original by them, because there's a lot of real deep cuts from certain scenes.
And where can we go and find this on the Warp YouTube channel?
It's on YouTube. If you just type in, it's called the Societas X tape. It's everywhere.
Okay.
If you just Google it, you'll find it. It's on YouTube. It's on Mixcloud, SoundCloud.
Yeah.
You can't not find it. So Boards of Canada, Societas, so SOCIAIETAS,
right.
X tape.
And
I'll probably put it in the description on the YouTubes and upload to this.
I'll link it up. I'll check that out. And Flying Lotus, what about him?
He did an original mix as well, and it was all kind of B-sides off Flamagra, so it's kind of this sister piece to Flamagra.
Do you think we'll see a release?
What was that?
Do you think we'll see a release of this stuff?
Oh, yeah, you can. It's online.
I mean, like a physical release, though.
Hopefully. It's pretty good. I listened to it, and I was like, this could easily be the second disc of Flamagra.
Yeah, well, Flamagra.
What did you think of it?
It was really, really good.
A lot of the hardcore fans are finding it's pretty forgettable, but I really like it.
Yeah, I remember you saying that because it's definitely Flylo. Like without a doubt, it's got his signature sound, and you can hear like Thundercat all through it. And, which is like a long time collaborator of his. I would probably describe it as like a lot more cinematic and a lot less schizophrenic than like his previous stuff. Because you listen to Cosmogramma, and that sounds like a million ideas like shoved together on an album. And the tracks are cutting from one to another very abruptly. So you'll be listening to a track and then it'll cut to the next one before you even realize almost what's actually happened. I feel as if Flamagra is kind of like more of a like you can't say it's a concept because there's really no lyrics or no story to it as far as I'm aware, but it feels more cinematic.
It's
that's the best way to describe it. It feels more cohesive.
You hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. I guess I have.
Yeah, because I wanted to say one of those because you said that to me when I was creating an understanding of something in the last episode, and it felt really nice. So I thought
thank you.
Thought I'd give that back.
Cheers,
you hit the nail on the head, Liam. Satisfying when you hear someone say that to you, right?
It is. Yeah. I've got the warm fuzzies.
The reason why is because, well, I don't know. This is just my subjective perspective. That's a bad name. Subjective perspective.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but it could work.
Like King Gizzard, Lizard Wizard.
Yeah. Okay. Now you've proven your point.
Yeah. Anyway, pardon me, Flamagra. The reason why I feel it's cinematic is, we talked about this. You haven't seen Cuso.
No, but you were telling me
it's very much a reflection of Cuso. And all the people who, I spoke to who listened to Flamagra and didn't like it, I said, have you watched Cuso, his film? And most of them were like, nah. All the people who had watched Cuso that I spoke to, that had seen it, they loved Flamagra.
Well, you even look
I feel like you got to it's like a graduation or an evolution from Cuso, because one of the first tracks is actually from that film, and it's kind of he's expanded upon it a bit more.
You showed me the trailer for Cuso, and immediately like I can see a link between like the artwork for Flamagra.
Yeah,
the whole. it seems to tie into like a similar like aesthetic to Kizo the film. Especially with the pop-up.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I don't know if there is a direct correlation or whether maybe he was just working with maybe someone who works with him on the film, helped him with the artwork.
Well, he
for
did the film
Flamagra
with
or-
David Firth, who did Salad Fingers.
That's right, you were telling me that. So do we know if David Firth did any of the artwork for Flamagra? Is that a
No,
thing?
I don't
or-
think it was him. I don't know who did the, but I feel like there would have been more of a song and dance about it. I'll have a look.
Yeah. No, it was but look, at any rate, it just felt like more of a complete body of work from start to finish.
Yeah.
As opposed to like just a collection of tracks where, you know, like he was trying to just find ways to segue them into one another, but it was
About 5 people worked on the artwork, none
Right.
of which who are David Firth.
There you go.
Yeah.
But, you know, just from what I can picture in my head from seeing that short trailer, yeah, I can definitely link the two together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of linking the two together,
Is this another segue?
this is another segue to something that you mentioned was Tom York's Anima.
Yeah, Anima, Anima.
Anima, I don't know. Anima. I feel like
I've been
and
saying
I think when I hear Anima, I think of the Tool album.
yeah, I've been saying Anima, so I'll just continue to say
Yeah.
Anima, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that dropped fairly recently.
But is it good?
Look, I try to have a listen to the album from start to finish today. I can't find it on YouTube. I can only find compilations that people have put together of tracks like that he's dropped live. Mind you, what I did here was quality. I mean, at the end of the day, most people I know who like Radiohead pretty much like everything that comes out that's related to Radiohead. So be that like a Tom York solo album or Adam's for Peace, which was pretty much him anyway, or a Radiohead album or whatever. It all kind of ties in. It all like his influence on that band is so profound, really, that like sometimes it's almost difficult to kind of draw a line between like a Tom York project and like a Radiohead project. But from what I could hear, it was of the exact same quality you would expect from something to have come out from Tom York. His use of like synthesizers and drum machines and keyboards and all of those electronic elements that he sort of started to experiment with on his first album. He's kind of mastering those now, and you can hear it. So his compositions are a lot more. They're a lot less like. They're a lot less. They just feel more cohesive, I guess, is what I could probably say about it. So I haven't had a proper listen all the way through, and like, as with like, you know, anything Radiohead or anything Tom York, like I find I have to listen to them, like sit down and listen to them a few times before I start to
Growers.
Yeah, they're always like a thing that grows on you. Like you never really just sit down and listen to any Radiohead album and go, oh yeah, I fucking love this. Like from the start, like King of Limbs is a good example. That album was really, really like quite cold and quite abstract. And I don't know if it was very well received, but in retrospect, you know, people really like the King of Limbs. I think you're always an album behind with Radiohead. That's the way I
all
kind of see
albums
it.
behind.
But I can definitely see that this one will grow on me. 100%.
Yeah.
About you, Dylan? Have you listened to it?
I haven't listened to it, no, but like on that point that Liam made about Growers, I remember when Kid A first came out, and that was their first kind of album that Radiohead released that was taking a different direction, a lot more experimental, a bit more electronic, and different to the sort of indie sound that they had. And several years after that album had come out, I'd listened to it lots of times, enjoyed it, but didn't really think anything massively of it. And then National Anthem just came on in my shuffle on my iPod at the time, and all of a sudden it was just like the best song I'd ever heard. And I'd heard it like so many times before, but it was
I love
just
that
like,
when you
know,
rehear a
how have
song.
I heard this so many times, and now I absolutely fucking love this song. Yeah, but that's the thing about the music you like the most. Sometimes takes a while before you actually
100%.
it really sinks in. If it's catchy and
sometimes
if it's too hooky or whatever.
If you like something from the offset, it's easy to kind of grow tired of it as well.
Yeah.
So there's so much layering in a Radiohead album. So so many like going back to the King of Limbs, for instance, like the thing that made that album click for me. They did a live at the Basement recording of that album. So not like that album when you listen to it, it's predominantly electronic. When you watch their live at the Basement, which is on YouTube, King of Limbs live at the Basement, they perform the album from start to finish, but they perform it live with instruments. And I kind of realized that must have been how they actually wrote that album, like as a collective. And I think there were maybe 6 or 7 members of that band. Like, there was the core Radiohead, but they had other session musicians involved in like actually writing and producing that album. And you watch them perform it with a real drum kit or drum pads at least. It's I kind of realized they're not replicating the electronic sounds with real instruments. Like they wrote their album with real instruments, performed it like that as a band, as a collective, and then when they went into the studio to record it, they replicated it with electronic instruments. So that album made so much sense to me. Like it was kind of like they'd reverse engineered it. You know what I mean? So yeah, if for anyone who hasn't, for anyone who out there who kind of never clicked with the King of Limbs, go and watch that King of Limbs live at the Basement. I think it goes for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but it will shed a new light on that album because that it's a work of genius. And it plays a lot with rhythm as well, which I think Tom York is really into, like time signatures and polyrhythms and things like that. And man, just go and watch it if you ever have the time.
In the reverse of that, King Gizzard, so going from King of the Limbs to King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, are releasing a new album on the 16th, Infest the Rat's Nest, and it's from what I understand, the first album with the least amount of members involved. It's only 3 of them out of the 7.
So a power trio.
Yeah, basically it's
guitar, drums, bass.
Well, it's Stu, the head of the band. He's doing bass and all that. So it's him, Cavs, one of the drummers. He's doing double kick. So he taught himself double kick, and he's recording that way. Because I don't think for the last 4 or 5 albums they've recorded with Eric. He just basically does it live now, and that's it. And he just manages because he's basically the head of Flightless.
Is he the guy with the glasses?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And Joey Walker, who's the other guitarist in King Gizzard. So it's like the 3 of them, they sat down, recorded it, and wrote it. All the other guys, obviously, Murlocs, Pi, and managing Flightless, they all went off and did their things anyway. But it's their thrash metal album. There's 3 songs out now, 2 of which I really liked.
They're quite heavy now.
Yeah, the Organ Farmer one, I've got to be honest, like, people who know me know that I'm an absolute King Gizzard nut, and they're just like, man, Stu McKenzie could sneeze through a didgeridoo and I'd order 2 copies on vinyl. And but this one, like, I don't know, Organ Farmer just was very like, it was like a 2-minute blast beat song, and it was just kind of like, look, we do blast beats now. And it just, I don't know, the second half is much better, but it just kind of, it seemed like they were just doing a song in that style for the sake of doing it in that style, which kind of is King Gizzard's thing. Yeah. But I don't know if they felt I don't know. Maybe they did feel genuinely inspired to do that, but it kind of just felt half-baked.
They've been like a lot of people I've spoken to, and like I don't really know a great deal about King Gizzard, beyond probably what you've told me and what you showed me, like when we've been hanging out in the store or whatever. A lot of people were saying that they're kind of become a bit of a quantity over quality outfit now.
Somewhat. The year in 2017 when they released 5 albums, all those albums were really good.
They're considered the classic 5 albums, is that right? Or
I wouldn't
like
say
you couldn't call them classic.
I don't know. Like Nonagon Infinity is probably the most classic one because that really popularized them overseas. That album, but I don't know. It depends. I don't think there's an essential set of King Gizzard. Everyone would have their own essential set, but
That's a good point
because
everything's so different
they
as well.
dabble in so many different styles. It's
Yeah.
kind of it comes from where you were previously, what drew you in, whether that was jazz or heavy metal or folk.
Yeah.
So I think it's more a subjective thing in terms of what the classics are.
Well, coming from you then, as a big fan of King Giz, would you prefer that they took a bit more time between releases and put something out that was a bit more?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Or do you just prefer the stream of consciousness style of releasing whatever they feel like at the time?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, stream of consciousness, because I think obviously Stu is a bit of a savant and he's channeling something crazy, and everything they do seems to have a lot of. There's nothing that feels cheap, I don't think.
They've obviously put a lot of time and research into a certain facet of music that they're exploring.
And you have to accept as well, these guys are doing really well for themselves, and they're just focusing on music, and there's 7 of them. You're going to have so many different influences coming from different angles that you can work with.
That's true.
And
like you're saying, I was going to say, a point with a band like King Gizzard, because they are sort of DIY, they got their own label and everything as well. Like, if they've got stuff that they're recording and they want to put it out there, just like Aphex Twin dropped a whole bunch of stuff that he never released commercially previously.
You're not bound by some labels.
Just,
they're not answering to
let's just do it.
anybody's.
They don't have to go up to the the CEO of Universal or whatever and say, hey, we've got this new album, do you think we can release it? They just do it, press it, sell it, fans love it, or they don't.
Well, it's a good point
time,
that you make as well, because you look at bands, other independent bands like the Brian Jonestown Massacre seem to have 1 or 2 albums out a year on A Recordings, which is Anton's label, or you've got the OCs who Castleface Records putting out an album or 2 or 3 a year and doing whatever the hell they want. So yeah, no, that's a good point that you make. They've got that freedom to do that. Speaking of which,
well, firstly, I'll say, however, put aside Organ Farmer, I'm very excited for the album, because the moment I got into King Gizzard, I always thought it would be sick if they did a thrash album. They did Nona Got Infinity, which was kind of a hard rock album with some kind of heavy metal kind of, to use the word again, textures in it, but it wasn't heavy metal so much. Then they did Murder of the Universe, which definitely was metal, but it was like a storybook. So this one seems like the full all-in metal album with a lot of thrash influence, which was the metal I was into when I was a teenager. So
yeah, a long time
the
coming.
nostalgic part of me, the nostalgic part of me is very excited for this. So
yeah,
I think it'll be good. I do still overall have faith. The last album that came out, Fishing for Fishies, was the first one. They didn't release an album.
That was a lot
year.
of boogie, kind of old timey, or not old timey, but there's a lot of blues and boogie, a lot of harmonica in that, and
it progresses from folk, like straight up folk, to completely synthesizers towards the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, you're right.
That's the
because
concept
I did
of
have
it.
a
It
listen through that
evolves.
one, and it got. Yeah, I remember towards the end of side B, it was like all.
It was all like disco funk.
That's right. Yeah.
But the middle part of that album kind of bored me originally, but I've kind of appreciated it in the last week. I listened to it a little bit when it first came out, and I was like, okay, this is good. I can tell there's an idea behind it and an intent, but I didn't quite get into it. And then in the last week, I've actually really enjoyed it and appreciated a lot of the finer details that I didn't pick up on. So I think I still have complete faith in King Gizzard.
It's a hallmark of an album that'll probably stick with you for a while.
The album art is the first album art which I've got I can't really get into. The album art is just I don't know what it is. Something about it.
Is it the same person who's done
Jason Galea?
Yeah,
and he is an absolute lord and inspiration to me. But that one just didn't get me. But that's okay.
You're
not going to get everyone in every hit, and I accept as well that it's still a good album cover.
It might grow on you in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? I might, in 10 years,
you might have it tattooed on your
time, man.
You might have it tattooed on your lower back by the time you're in your 50s. You never
know. But on the same day, the OCs are releasing their double album, which is Face Stabber. Yeah, Face Stabber.
I love the
classic.
titles of their albums. Face Stabber.
They've released 2 songs. The first one, Henchlock, which is 20 minutes long. It's like a jazzy jam. The second one actually dropped a few hours ago. It's kind of a bit more of a 3-minute psyche kind of tune, very different. But it is a double album, so we're going to have a treat. Garage rock fans are going to be very happy on August 16th because you got new King Gizzard, new OCs, and if you're a metal fan too, you got Tool the following week.
Yes, this has been a long time coming, this one.
Yeah. Do you think it's like Half-Life 3 where it's not going to live up to the hype because it's been too long?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you, man, because like you're can't honestly say that I'm I don't not like Tool, but I couldn't call myself a fan because I've never really heard much of their stuff.
Took me a long time to get into it, but it's very somewhat esoteric. It's
quite progressive, but in a sense, it's
progressive.
also quite commercial.
The thing
as
when
well.
I'm listening to Tool, I like it when I'm listening to it, but I never actually feel like listening to it when I'm not listening to it. So if someone
you don't
like,
seek it out.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's good, but I don't seek it out.
That's a good
But
way to
every
put it.
time we've spun a Tool record in here, I've gone, yeah, this is good. I'm enjoying this. Like it's
It's definitely like it's. I'm not a fan. Probably much like you.
It's
just
very-
I'm just a bit indifferent to Tool, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. I was indifferent to Tool until in the last few years, but there's so much intent behind everything with it. The earlier albums I'm not too much into, but 10,000 Days and Lateralus, iconic heavy metal albums to me.
I've got a great deal of respect for Maynard James Kinnan.
Yeah.
He's a guy. He's a man with a vision, and he's
Well, they all are. Like, they're all equally responsible for Tool.
Mm.
Adam Jones, I think is his
the
name.
guitarist.
The guitarist.
Yeah.
He writes all the guitar parts. The bassist does all the bassist parts. The drummer does all the drumming.
Yeah,
right?
they're a
They all-
Beatles style band. They all contribute. Yeah.
Exactly. But Adam, you want to know a cool fact? Adam, the guitarist, is a special effects artist and worked on Jurassic Park, and a whole. I don't know.
Do you mean
what
like
this-
practical special effects?
practical
Yeah,
effects?
that's pretty cool.
And like, I'm pretty sure he was a big part of the practical effects on Jurassic Park and a few other movies. So he's,
The recent
they're,
Jurassic Park?
they're those kind of guys who just they understand creativity and music beyond what we traditionally
They
appreciate.
take a very visionary approach to it.
Yeah.
Each album kind of like has a flowing theme, and
It seems like they're channeling something else.
yeah,
It's
100%.
cool.
And Maynard, I love the guy's
That's why
voice.
people who are super into
It's a lot
LSD
of-
love them.
Into who?
People who are super into LSD love them because
Yeah.
it feels like that. It feels like there's the secrets
Or
of the
DMT
universe.
or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of DMT sort of like.
That's why Joe Rogan's had
Thing.
Maynard on his podcast a
yeah,
couple of
yeah,
times.
yeah. I'm sure he asked him that. He's probably like, "Oh, cool story. Have you ever tried DMT?"
Maynard's just into making wine these days.
Actually, that's funny you should say that. I caught this snippet of that podcast where he's talking about winemaking,
Yep.
and he's not just. This is one of the reasons I love Maynard. He just throws himself into things, like he's not just putting his name on the label.
Yeah, because he's into jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, he's like growing the grapes. He's like, he's connected with all these other really famous winemakers in like the Barossa Valley in France, and all these famous wine regions. And he's always asking them questions about, what should the soil pH be, or like, these grapes aren't quite, growing to my expectations. How can I fix this? Blah blah blah. Blah. He's like thrown himself into it like headlong, and he's producing apparently some pretty damn good wine.
There you go. Yeah.
It's got a bit of time in his hands then.
Would you start a
Tool
Rhubarb
albums-
wine label?
Probably not. I couldn't
No. imagine
imagine myself dedicating enough time out of my life to grow my own grapes.
Yeah.
They take a couple of years to get established. I want quick, faster results than that. Maybe making some gin.
Yeah.
In the
I'll get
bathtub.
into that, yeah.
Yeah.
Gin distilling, but
Moonshine.
Yeah.
Dylan's bathtub water.
Oh, don't even go there, man.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this, Dylan?
What's
This is
that?
a newsworthy topic.
Well, it has been, yeah, in this day and age. There's like some famous YouTube channel run
Gamer
by this
girl.
chick. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like a gamer girl, and she decided that she would try to make some extra cash selling her bath water. So she made YouTube videos of her
jarring it up.
Yeah,
and
like
selling
in
for
the
like
bath.
$40 a piece.
Yeah, jarring up her bathwater and selling it for like lots of money. And some poor unfortunate fellow drank some and ended up hospitalized.
Really?
Yeah, and that's
With what?
I don't know.
Chlamydia?
like something gross like that. But yeah, this is the day and age we live in.
Yeah.
We're living in a strange timeline. Trump's president and people are drinking chicks' bathwater that they bought on the internet.
That's it. Yeah, so Dylan's bathtub water is coming soon. To not the label, because you have some news for us, Dylan. Slight news.
Some slight news. Oh, do you want to just smash straight into
We'll
it?
go straight into it. I
Okay,
think.
yeah, well,
So what's happening with the label?
so basically...
Well, we'll start with Rhubarb Jam 4 is coming.
Yeah, so Rhubarb Jam 4 is coming up. We did have a delay. I've had a few people messaging me saying what's going on with Rhubarb Jam 4. It was due to be out last month.
Unfortunately, some things changed with bands. So
basically what happened is one of the tracks after we'd put the job into production, into the production queue. One of the band managers from one of the bands involved gave me a call a couple of days after and said due to their release date schedule for the single that was on the album that they needed to pull the track. So that was a little bit stressful. Luckily, I was able to find a replacement track, but that pushed the. We had to then wait about a month or so to get the artwork redone. Unfortunately, the graphic designer was just about to go to Japan.
Perfect storm.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a perfect storm. So we lost our position in the queue, and we are now probably about at least several weeks to a month before the finished product will be out. So yeah, that's all cool though. Things happen. It's it's a physical product, and these
It just
things
be
happen.
like that sometimes.
Yeah. So that was that's no biggie. But the bomb that I was talking about before that I wanted to sort of mention, I wouldn't say it's a bomb so much, but just the news, was that we're going to take a sort of indefinite break on Rhubarb Records, the label. The reason being, we've got other aspects of the business that have been growing quite, that we want to sort of focus time into, which namely are just the bricks and mortar stores. We've got a lot happening at the cafe with the license coming up, and we're planning on putting a lot more events on.
Yeah.
I think it's just better for us to be focusing on those aspects. It's more, we can contribute more into the sort of Perth music scene by doing that, rather than trying to sort of spread ourselves too thin.
Yeah. So while these things grow, it's just going to kind of
We're just literally just going to keep the Rhubarb Jam series running. We may or may not release more albums in independent local releases. We've had a pretty good run.
Taking a bit of a back seat.
Yeah, it's just got to take a back seat. You can only do so many things well at one time before you kind of can't really focus on what needs to be done. There's only so many hours in a day, and we've got so many people that we're working with. But yeah, I think we've had a good couple of years. We've worked with some bands that have gone on to do pretty well, like the Pawn Crumpets, for example, just released their third album. Their first two albums came out on Rhubarb Records. So that's one of the success stories that we've been involved with. We've worked with
Terrible Signal.
Verge Collection, Terrible Signal, Pat Chow.
all
The
really
Cavaliers.
good bands.
Yeah, the Cavaliers were the first band that
Fun.
we got involved with, which was fun when we were just sort of toying with the idea, and that was a good starting point for us. The Spun Love, Stephen Bailey, he's now working with a UK-based label called Cardinal
cool.
Fuzz. That's really cool and doing
And
really well.
their US subsidiary or a different label?
No, well, also Dusky Tracks,
Dusky
which is
Tracks.
owned by Lucas Skinner.
Yeah.
So we did 2 collabs with
From
them.
King Gizzard.
Stephen Bailey's first album was a collab with Dusky Tracks, and so was Terrible Signal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done some cool stuff. It's been fun, but we're not really. I sort of feel like we're not really able to offer enough service to the bands, other than just releasing the album. So Yeah, I'd like to focus on just getting the bricks and mortar stores like just doing as best as they possibly can, putting all our time and effort into that, and keeping the Rhubarb Jam series running. That's a good way to highlight some of the new indie bands that are unsigned and get their music out on vinyl and create a bit of an archive for future collectors and explorers to discover what's happening.
Perfect. So, Rhubarb label to be continued at some point in the future, having a rest for now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
and
lying
also,
dormant.
You mentioned that there was going to be a date. That you want people
so
to
save
keep
the
in mind.
date, September 21st. We've got something really big in the works. It'll be the biggest sort of music event that we've.
What is it?
That we've organised. What is it?
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so it's going to be
it's
going to be the unofficial, or it's going to be the official launch party of Rhubarb Jam 4.
Yep.
But rather than just focus on only the bands that are on that particular compilation, we're going to sort of have a bunch of different acts that we've worked with over the last sort of
celebration
4
of
years.
all the Rhubarb Jams.
Yeah, and just Perth music.
Great.
So there's some. I mean, if you have a look on who we've worked with, either on Discogs or jump on the Rhubarb Records website, we've got quite a awesome pool of artists that we've worked with. So it's going to be, I reckon, one of the big gigs of the year.
Yeah.
Just getting closer to summer. So
that pre-season jitters kicking in.
So we will in the next couple of weeks, or probably not long after this podcast is actually published, there'll be details going live.
Yeah.
So collabing with some pretty cool people in the music industry in Perth as well.
Yeah, I feel like that was a pretty good episode, Liam. Dylan, how did you feel about that one?
I felt pretty good about it.
Not bad. I just got to get used to keeping my head next to the microphone when talking. And
We've got luckily we've got guidance from the podcast.
Yeah, we got the guru.
The podcast guru here.
Thank you.
He knows what he's doing. He's basically just guiding us, making sure we don't do anything stupid or talk away from our mics too far.
Yeah. Oh, the last thing. Oh, completely forgot to talk about this. The vinyl putty.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So quickly talk about that because
Flubber.
Sorry, vinyl flubber.
Yeah, vinyl flubber.
So it's exactly like the Robin Williams film. Open it up and it bounces off the walls. And
you can put it on the bottom of your shoes and rise to the top of the NBA draft.
So that I picked up a bottle of that because I wanted something to clean my records.
It's from Project.
Yeah, it's made by Project, so a good trusty name.
Yeah,
and it's green flubber, looks like Flubber the movie, and it kind of shifts shape really strangely, but it's really. I bought one to clean my records at home with. I found, to give a little review, it's not so good for like oil and stuff that's sat on a record for a long time, but like fresh fingerprints and such, it'll pick up really well. It's really good for getting off dust if you don't want to run a duster and potentially scratch.
deep set grit.
Yeah, it really gets right in there and cleans it up. And you can clean your needle with it too.
Yeah, it's a 2-in-1, so it's good for your stylus. If you have a slightly more upmarket cartridge and stylus, and you don't want to use anything abrasive to clean it, or you don't want to use a solvent, you can literally just press this flubber up onto the stylus and lift it off. It'll pull everything that's sitting on the stylus off with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's probably the least invasive way you can clean a stylus.
Yeah.
And much like I suppose everyone's heard about the wood glue trick. The principle being you just squirt a bunch of PVA wood glue all over your precious vinyl and let it dry, and then have to peel it all off in one, and that's supposed to pull the grit out. Well, this is the exact same principle, but it's like a specially formulated product from Project that you can actually reuse. You don't have to wait for it to dry.
Yeah.
There's no chance of you damaging your label or getting glue all
and
over
to be
the
clear
place.
as well, it is by no means sponsored by Project as well. It's just something interesting that got in.
So it's only just come out a matter of months ago. I saw some YouTube reviews about it, and it just happened to pop up on our supply list, and it's been selling like hotcakes, and everyone's been really happy with it.
So we thought we'd maybe give one away on the podcast to get things going on there. So on the platforms, we'll we'll ask a question and you just comment with the answer, so either YouTube or Facebook, and we'll just randomly pick someone who wins it. So something relevant to what we talked about today.
We'll choose something. We'll dig something up.
What should the question be? I want people to hear it here.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right.
Far away.
What was the name of the Radiohead album that I was talking about that I didn't really quite understand at first, but then grew to like afterwards?
Very good question. Cool. So if you comment that on the Facebook upload of this or the YouTube upload of this, we'll pick a random person out of the two lists. So if you comment on both, that's you're double dipping your entries, and we're cool with that. So, yeah.
Winner will have winner will have one
flubber
waiting for them at
A lifetime
the
supply of flubber,
yeah,
which is one tub.
which is one tub. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a disclaimer. Winner will have one waiting at the Rhubarb Records Eastvic Park branch. So come and see me and say howdy and come and grab it if you are the lucky winner.
Very generous.
Thank you.
All good vibes on here.
Yeah, we're generous people.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, this has been good. We're going to get our guest for the next episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just about wraps up episode
One.
Episode 0001. The last one was
Catalog
0000.
I'm naming the episodes online as like a catalog number. So
We'll put them up on
this'll
Discogs as well.
Yeah, 001. The first one, because it was so loose, is just going to be the test.
Yeah.
The beta test. We'll still upload that so people can hear it, because there was some cool music facts by Liam in that one.
Guitar facts
great,
too.
guitar facts, some great banter from Matt here.
Thank you.
Some great Doritos were delivered.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for if you were listening, give yourself a little pat on the back.
Yeah. That's from Dylan. Feel that pat
From
in the
me,
back? That's
yeah.
from Dylan.
Yeah.
It's Dylan in spirit.
Across the cosmos.